The sin of one harms all in the house. Anytime that you affiliate with a group, you can affiliate with that group and not expect one in that group to not affect or infect you. And so the Lord is saying, we've got to deal with some stuff. And he said, this ain't for the unbeliever. You'd have to literally leave earth. And that's what's going to happen one day. We're going to have to literally leave earth to not be affected by the world's sin. But when we in this house, we should all be in a hospital. And it should not be one person in a hospital wanting to remain sick. What you doing in a hospital if you want to stay sick? What are you doing in rehab if you want to stay the way you are? We come to the hospital not just to take up room and take up beds and stay in the situation that we're in. You can leave and let somebody else get that bed. You ever try to check somebody into where you work and it ain't no beds left because they all full? God forbid all the beds be full in this house because somebody don't want to be delivered and set free. Oh, God, have mercy. Preach, Holy Ghost. God forbid every bed be full. We don't have any beds available. You're going to have to go check somewhere else. And folk are sitting right here and don't want to be delivered and playing and trying to infect other people and trying to see who can I sleep with, who can I get with, who can I talk about, who can I run down, who can I kill in the pew, who can I kill in the church, how can I infect them? Going around the hospital with dirty needles. This is what we're doing. There are beds that need to be had. Put down the needle and get made whole. Once again, y'all thought we was just in the Old Testament. Ain't nothing changed. We've watered down the gospel. We've made his grace cheap. His grace was never cheap in the first place. You made it cheap. I made it cheap. It was never meant to be cheap. God is saying, deal with some stuff in the house. I told you had permission before, but where my linebackers at? Y'all still good? You ready? I might need you to stand up in a minute because there's some stuff we got to deal with in the house. There's some stuff we got to deal with right here. I don't know about you, but I want to go higher. I don't know about you, but I want to be better. I don't know about you, but I want to become whole. I don't know about you, but I want victory. And God forbid we sit in the same place hindering one another's victory. 36 people killed. Why? Because one person couldn't get it together. Couldn't follow the rules. Unified obedience. It may not be your fault, but maybe it's your problem. And we got to deal with some problems in the house. God have mercy. God is calling us to deal with some problems. We got a whole lot to say about them out there, but they acting just like they're supposed to act. What's our excuse? We're real good at putting our mouths on people. We're real good at talking down to people and putting them in hell. And here we sit in the house like a lost coin, throwing stones at a glass house. God help us. Come on, shout, I want to be made free. Come on, shout, I want to be healed. Come on, shout, I want to be whole. Now, don't say it if you don't mean it now. Come on, say, I got room right here if you want to get by me. We can be healed together. I got room right here. There's another bed right here. You can be made whole if you want to. I'm not taking up no empty space. I'm not ruining your space. God is calling for us to deal with some things in the house. Why? Because we cannot expect to fight in God's power if we cannot walk in obedience. Hear me. We cannot expect to fight. How you going to fight in his power if you can't even walk in his obedience? How you going to run with the horseman if you can't even walk with a walkman? How you going to fight if you can't walk? I want to fight in your power, but I don't want to obey you. What do we say to our children? If you can't live by my rules. So you want the covering, but you don't want to obey. You want the blessing, but you don't want to obey. You want peace that passes all understanding, but we don't want to obey. We want joy unspeakable and full of glory, but we don't want to obey. We want all the promises. We'll receive that, won't we? Give me every promise you got, God. We want to be the first runner-up. We want our name called, but we don't want to obey. We'll receive a promise, but then we reject his threats. Don't you know you can't trust God for the promise if you can't trust him for the threat? This is the word. I'm still in the book. You can't trust him for his promise. We can quote promises all day long. And if I can trust you for your promise, then I can trust you for your threat. I want you to consider the sin that the man by Achan has committed. By the sin that he committed, he's showing God, I don't really believe who you are. Because if I really thought that you were omniscient and omnipresent, I would have known I couldn't hear anything from you in the first place. God says, I'm going to point this man out. And then he didn't even just do it in a very direct manner. He could have said, he's right there. He didn't do that. He wanted literally to affect the entire congregation. He wanted everyone to be a part of what was going to happen. I want every tribe, come on up here. I see you. Now I want every clan of every tribe. I'm going to point out the clan. Now I want every family in every clan. I'm going to point out the family. Now I'm going to point out the man in the family. Think about this. Why would not Achan save everybody the trouble of all this drama? You know what that's like, don't you? When you're going to whoop one of the kids and won't nobody tell them who did it, but they know who they are. And so all of them stand right there and you say, unless you open up your mouth, everybody's going to get it. And what happens usually? Especially if it was me. Y'all all getting whooped. We'll talk about this later. That's what we do. Achan is no different. It's a very childlike behavior. He should have immediately known, hold on, God saw me. So at the same time, he's dumbing God down. He's treating God like he's one of these dummy gods of the Canaanites. Like he's a God that can't see, a God that can't hear. He's treating God like God is not going to make his promise and his threats come true. He said very specifically in Joshua chapter 6, verse 18, you'll be destroyed. But yet, he's not taking him at his word. I want you to imagine, just go there with me visually. What was this like? He says, all right, it's me. Yeah, of course we know it's you because you're the only one left. All right, it's me. Let me tell you what happened. What had happened was, I was, doing what the Lord told me to do. And it's where we go wrong. We're still talking about the house. We're still talking about the church. I was doing what the Lord told me to do, but then I saw something. And it's something about when I see something and then I don't have the self-control to turn away from. You ever look at something that seems like it's looking back at you? Who's Daniel fast? Daniel fast? Daniel fast. You ever look at something that seems like it's talking to you? But it takes some self-control. That coffee was calling you, wasn't it? I had a few chocolate bars calling me. But it took self-control to look back at that thing and say, the devil is a liar. But the moment I don't have enough self-control to look at that thing, instead I keep looking and looking and looking until I start coveting. And the moment I start coveting, that's when I start taking. And when I start taking, that's the moment I set myself up for destruction. I want you to see the gradual progression of sin. Picture him having seen this beautiful robe. I saw a robe. I told you what Jericho was known for. They're known to make beautiful things, luxurious things. I saw that. It was so beautiful. And then I saw some silver. And then I saw some gold. Now, Jericho is infiltrated with God's people. Everybody's around. Picture it. I want you to see how intentional our sin is. He not only does that, he goes into his tent, lifts it up. Your boys start digging. This is why the family gets involved. Hear me, hear me. This is where the family gets involved because it's going on in your house. You know you saw him digging. You know you saw the trespass. You know you heard that something went right. But what do we do in our house? What goes on in this house stays in this house. And then who becomes affected by what went on in this house? That some of us are depressed right now. suicidal right now, messed up mentally right now, because what happened in this house was buried under the floor in this house. It's still in this house. Ain't nobody talked about it. Ain't nobody dealt with it. And now the whole house is crazy. And we still talking about God's house. Do you hear me? And ain't nobody gonna talk about it. Come on, let's just clap our hands and act like ain't nothing wrong. I know they molested you, but we ain't gonna talk about that. I know what they said to you, and you still believe what they said, and they talk crazy to you, but we ain't gonna talk about that. We're gonna let that stay in this house. Do you see that's buried right there? It's buried for a reason. He buries it. This is why the rest of the family got involved. Oh, you know you saw what happened. You know you heard what happened. And then what happens now that you didn't tell? Now that you didn't speak about it, now that you didn't confess it, at least to God, then that person is left to perpetrate other victims. I'm still talking to the church. And when I see the church, I'm not even talking about your specific house. I'm talking about the household of faith in general. Sometimes things happen in church that will literally cause folk to lose their mind. And you don't want to tell because it happened in. Don't insult my intelligence. If I'm violated, it needs to be dealt with. And sometimes we suspect that everybody that's in the church, I told you some of us are just taking up beds. So we want to send kids to the restroom by themselves but some folk are just taking up beds and spend the night with just whoever because that's sister and that's brother. And some of us are just taking up beds. And so here we are. We're not going to talk to the police about that. We don't want the officers. The devil is a liar. You better call 911. I want you to consider the tragedy that could have been avoided. One person saying not in God's house. One person saying not in the kingdom. One person saying not in this church. One person saying not in my house. And all of this could have been avoided. All of this, none of this had to been written. But why did it have to be written? Because he knew it was going to be somebody else that tried to cover up some stuff. He said, I got to make this known. I got to put this out there. They wanted to cover it up and they wanted to put it underneath their tent and they wanted to make sure the silver, something about that silver gets us every time, don't it? Got your boy Judas. And we know what happened to Judas and you're about to see what happened to Achan. Notice that whenever we start hiding stuff in the first place, we know. Come on, Adam and Eve, come holler at me. You ain't never done something that you knew was wrong. Not a believer. I'm not talking about the world, I told you. We in church. We talking to the. You ain't never done something that you knew was wrong. Just, I'm going to take these items. I'm going to display them proudly. I'm going to let everybody see that gentleman that is not my husband or not my wife come into my home. I'm going to let everybody see me cuss you out in Walmart because you got on my. Everybody going to see me cuss you out. I'm going to come into his house just lit. Notice, we do these things hiding. We don't do those things in the open. Whenever we let this be an indication, well, I just don't know if this is sin or not. Well, let's see if you can do it in front of your brothers and your sisters in Christ. Let that be the. Now, if you feel comfortable, then likely either that or your reprobate mind. Then likely it's okay. But if you can't do it in front of the group, then it's probably something that's going to end up infecting the group. And so God says, I've got to deal with some things because I can't have you winning battles, thinking that you can tolerate sin in your life because you'll think that you can enter into the promised land tolerating sin and you'll remain that way.